Ladies and gentlemen, please, please, please welcome my very special guests, plural. I have with me the Shannon family. Say Habari Gani.
Nani.
It's so good
Hey,
to see you. You have no idea how excited I am about this. I have been friends with the Shannon family for a long, long time. Keith Shannon was literally there the day I met the man who would become my husband. I
Right.
met his lovely wife shortly thereafter. His son Reed and I became good friends, and I was able to mentor him and talk a little bit about his career path as he became an artist. It's an incredible family of people. There is a room full of shining stars, and I just can't wait for us to dig in a little bit. So let's do exactly that. Um, before we get into the actual principle of the day, Imani, and talk a little bit about faith, I want to start with Keith and Belinda. As the head of the household, you all were the first to begin your Kwanzaa celebrations. So, what initially drew you to become celebrants of Kwanzaa?
I guess I can get started. I think when we were always looking for something when we were raising the kids, and when we, as our family was looking for rituals, we wanted to do something meaningful, and especially we wanted to add to, our Christian faith. We also wanted to add other layers that were meaningful and would provide direction, positive direction for all of us. And so I think it was really, just looking for family ritual that meant something. What do you think, Keith?
Well, first want to say, Shonda, it's so wonderful that you bring the community together every year about this time, and it takes faith and hard work when everyone else is relaxing this time of year. You are intent on looking back over the year and bringing community together, and so community is a big part of our life, and preserving our culture is a big part of our life. Belinda already mentioned the fact that we are Christians and our faith. This being the day, the last day, celebrating faith, Imani, is so important to us. And I think that you know when the children were very young, we tried to do things to pull away from the commercialism surrounding Christmas. So, instead of going out to the stores to buy things for us internally, we would do a secret Santa maybe in the family, but we wanted to do things for the community, and the principles of Kwanzaa and the symbols of Kwanzaa just really match our family, and take away that commercialism and help us be introspective and sort of look back at the year and look forward to the next year. All of the symbols of Kwanzaa help us do that.
I absolutely love that thought, and it's one of the things that that prompted me when I really sort of, as a Christian, you have the faith that you grew up with, what you learned sitting on the pew because you were drugged to church by mama and daddy and that kind of thing. And then you have that moment where, it becomes real for you personally. Sort of the same thing happened with me in Kwanzaa. I grew up celebrating Kwanzaa, and it was a very big celebration, and the teens and the children were involved heavily, and I loved it. I always enjoyed Kwanzaa, but it wasn't until I had a child of my own household that it was like real for me, and I began to preach the gospel of Kwanzaa. And writing that book and really coming to terms with we're going to have to do things a little differently than they were done for me. Um, so I completely understand that notion of wanting to put something in place for your family that's going to be beneficial. So at this point, I want to ask you a follow up to that. Were the kids always on board for Kwanzaa, or was that kind of like a mama and daddy thing? or was that like, no, we're all hands on deck, we're all in for Kwanzaa? And family, y'all can feel free to jump in right there too, because like I saw some head bobbles. I saw you on the screen.
I think we were always into it from what I remember. I think it was something different, but also an add on to just the way that we grew up. Like my dad was saying, like we always gave of ourselves and our time, talent, and treasure, and wanted to make sure that that was something that they wanted to make sure that that was something that was instilled within us. So we were always volunteering, always keeping a lot of the core principles um, at the forefront of everything we did. So it wasn't too far off from that. And then we always had Black history infused within everything that we were doing. I mean, we would be writing book reports and things in the summer and, making sure that people at school knew to celebrate Black History Month and things like that. So I don't think it was too different from what we were already doing, the traditions that were already infused within the household.
That's old school, writing book reports in the summertime. I
Yep.
love that.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're gonna
I
learn
turned out,
today.
yeah. I mean, and my love of reading and reading and research and finding out, my curiosity, all of those kinds of things tie back to that definitely. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was like Toby said, it was just part of the culture of our family. Actually, in addition to our Christian faith, we always were very much tied to our culture as people of African descent, people descendants of enslaved people. We always wanted to make sure that we represented. I remember, for each of the kids, like whenever they had to like do a report on a historical figure at school, we always made sure it was someone of African descent
Uh-huh.
because there just was not enough visibility, there in school.
And I was just gonna say we were blessed to travel to Africa with
Mm,
Totally.
yeah, Toby went with us. We sponsored a cultural tour through one of our foundations, and in going to Kenya,
Mm.
it really, we went to Kenya in the middle of the year in June,
mhm.
and of course, going to the motherland really, you know, turned up the heat on why we should celebrate 365.
That's critical. Toby, tell me a little bit about that trip. What do you remember from like going to Africa in your formative age?
Yeah, I do remember. It's funny that this is on this question of being on board because I was not on board for that trip. I think I remember being like around 9 years old and I wanted to, stay home, go to like soccer camp with my friends and stuff. And my mom and dad were like, no, we're going to Kenya. And I had no idea what that meant. I just knew that it wasn't at home. And so I'm really appreciative for that because, yeah, we got to go over there and it was a completely different culture. There were also other kids that came on the trip. And so that was, I think, helpful for me and like experiencing that with other people my age. Like, okay, this is something that's obviously different. It's not that many of us that are really traveling like that, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, it gave me an opportunity to see something that was completely different from what I was used to at home, um, and influence a lot of the choices that I made as well in terms of like school. Like we visited a boarding school, and so I ended up going to a boarding school back in the States. And also, I think that it helped me kind of open my worldview. And so I eventually became an international studies major in college, was able to travel more. And that's something that definitely instilled like a love for other cultures and being able to relate to other people outside of myself.
All of that is so critical. And again, I always pull my lens back to parenting because I'm in a moment right now where what that looks like for me and for my husband and our family is shifting and developing. We're starting to begin those things that are really going to be traditions that my own daughter knows and recognizes. And so I love listening to stories from other families about how they, did it, how they got over. Um, and to hear that, there were other families out there that were like making clearly defined choices for their children and instituting those decisions in their homes rather than just kind of like letting them come to their own choices. And well, she said she didn't want to go, so we'll just leave her home with grandma and we'll keep it pushing. I just love
Right.
that. Some of our thinking these days has gotten around to giving giving children more freedom, and that's not always a bad thing. But there are some missed opportunities that can occur there too in that space.
And just for the record, that was in 2006 when we went. So Sabrina was already in college at Florida A&M, and Reed
Go
was
Rattlers.
too young to go on the trip.
Mhm.
So Toby, for once, as a middle child, she had the luck of the first order.
Oh wow, the
For
stars
once.
aligned, girl.
And, and it so happened that Sabrina, has done the most traveling around the world, being in the military, and she's probably the most militant because her children are Kwanzaa babies when they came out of
Mhm.
the womb.
I love it.
5 year
That's
old.
exactly where I was
That was
headed.
about 5 year old Jada.
This right here is critical. Sabrina, let's
Oh,
jump
come
to you
on.
because we've talked about how how your upbringing was critical and how Kwanzaa was instituted in the home for you. You've actually come to a point where you have your own family and you've instituted this for them. So we're now in a second generation of Kwanzaa celebrants. And from what I hear, like it's a whole serious thing for you in your house. So like was it easy to institute that? Was it something different? Was it, just tell me a little bit more about how that happens.
So, hello, Habari
Hey,
Gani.
habari gani imani.
So,
Money,
yes, it was
money.
very easy to institute Kwanzaa because, as Toby, my sister, already mentioned, it was instilled into us as young kids. So, I remember I always tell people I probably stopped asking for gifts around 7 or 8 years old because I remember Christmas, but then I also remember living with my dad and mom, and we learned about Kwanzaa. Really understood that Christmas was not about a fake Santa Claus, but it was about the birth of Jesus. It was a birthday celebration. It was bringing our family, our community, everybody together. And then learning about Kwanzaa, learning about the principles. I can honestly say, as a child, I didn't really understand it, but I did understand the aspect of just giving and the gift
Mhm.
of giving, and that it wasn't about receiving, but it was about making others know that you're there for them. So for me as an adult and having my own family definitely is something that I wanted to instill into the home. And not just for the 7 days, but throughout the year, because every principle, when you really learn each principle and tie them together, it's amazing to see like the things that you can accomplish for the entire year. And so having the kids, teaching them about something simple as far as the kente that we wear in the cloths, and the meaning of each item that goes with the Kwanzaa setup, learning each principle in the dialect of Swahili, understanding the grounds and the mud. I go into detail with all those. It's like every year I try to think about a different aspect of just our African diaspora and where we come from and where we're going. And so now I have a 12-year-old, and she fully is aware of what Kwanzaa is and that we're always going to celebrate, always looking forward to an activity that the family is going to do together. And that's Journey. And then we have Jada, who's 5, and I think she has embraced it all the way. She loves to wear the clothing. She loves to light the candles. She loves to repeat the words and the principles and then know what it means and why we do it. So very easy to instill, and hopefully I'll continue so that when they start having their own family, they'll be able to continue that tradition.
That's tremendous. I love it. I love it. And we think about we think about so many of our traditions. There are so many things that we do simply because Big Mama did it or does it. And to have Kwanzaa as one of those things, I think would be so special and it would really move things along. And here we are in more than 50 years since the outset of Kwanzaa, and I'm still running into people who have never heard of it, who have a
Mm.
total misconception of it, who don't understand it. So it's really refreshing to sit and spend time with a family who like has been dug in for a while, been in the trenches, and is perpetuating that. Now, Toby, I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I won't make you speak for your brother Reed, but as the siblings who do not yet have your own families and your own children to be responsible for, do you feel like this is definitely something you're going to institute in your future families?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, all my friends already know that I celebrate it. I'll say a barigani, post on my Instagram stories and tell people about it if they're around me. Try to implement at least one of the days
Mhm.
into what I'm doing. So, like, this is like a good thing that I'm doing in terms of having this conversation, because it's just really important to me to make sure that people are aware that it exists, and understand what it represents. And I think that the the thing that I kind of reach out to people about it is the community aspect of it. Like, it really
Mhm.
helps in bringing people together and making sure that people can, again, like, revere the principles and instill them within their daily lives. Like, it's not just the 7 days, but it's 365. And also a great way to kind of end off the year and reflection, like my dad was saying, and then be able to go into the new year and have, if you have your set goals, if you have your resolutions, whatever you want to call them, it gives you a chance to really instill those and make sure that you start the year off on a good foot.
I love that. So let me ask this next one because I'm officially no longer one of the hip young folks. It happened back in October. I crossed over and I'm like, so are the young kids celebrating Kwanzaa? Is this a thing that the next
Was
generation is
that
kind of like
traumatic for
picking?
you? Was
Not,
that traumatic for you,
I don't
Shonda?
think it was I don't think it was traumatic. I felt some feelings. I felt some feelings definitely, but I'm all about walking in my grown womanhood. Like it's a thing. I'm here and I'm embracing it because I have friends who didn't make it to 40, so there's that. And I have friends who don't look like I do at 40, so there's also that.
Right.
But
Okay.
but at the same time, like I'm at the age where I have to like think about it and like wonder are the young people doing this or is this us? I've gotten to the age where I literally can say, well, back in my day, well, back when I never thought that day would arrive, but here we are. So tell me a little bit more, Toby, if you would, about like what the hip young kids are doing with Kwanzaa and like how they're approaching it
I
because
don't
it
know.
feels like it might be different.
Even. I'll say I think that it only takes one person, and I'm that one person usually. I feel like my sister is probably the same. Like, we're usually the people in our friend groups or in other communities that we're part of who are really like upholding a lot of the principles and really bringing them to the forefront. I have a few friends and folks who are still participating in Kwanzaa, and being able to like utilize it in different ways. But I would say I might not be the best person. Like, this would be a question for Reed for sure.
Uh,
But yeah, I think it only takes one person to be able to really, dig deeper into the principles and again instill them into daily life. Like, I know for me, again, I utilize the aspect of community when it comes to Kwanzaa and being able to, reel people in, say like, hey, let's get together as community. Um, what do these principles mean to you? How can we make sure that we are doing them as a friend group, as a different community? and even like participating in the other cultural events like around the cities that we live in. I know people are out there who are doing it. I think it could be more widespread.
I agree. I agree. Here again, back to my age, back to, not to make it about me, but like I'm looking forward to being able to host like just a Kwanzaa brunch where like
Yeah.
that's a thing with a beautiful, African diasporic charcuterie board and like
Yeah.
the
I did
fruit.
that in Korea.
You did?
Hmm.
Tell me more. I've got to know.
Sabrina.
I've got to know about the
Yeah.
Kwanzaa brunch in Korea that occurred. This is fantastic.
Yeah, so I was a company commander that was in charge of about 250 soldiers, and they worked amongst the region of South Korea from Area 1 to Area 4, which is pretty big. Um, so with me, of course, it's kind of easy because I was the commander. So sometimes some of the soldiers kind of did what I asked, but at the same time, it was an opportunity to kind of teach them. So
It helps to be in charge.
it does. It does a little bit. But when you add, I guess, like joy and they see your passion for it, it's really easy to kind of get others on board. So I actually went on, I found a vendor, a Black owned vendor that sold like Kwanzaa cups and plates. And of course, soldiers will come out because we're away from home. A lot of my soldiers are 18, 19-year olds. They're away for the holidays. They're not with their families. And that's really hard for soldiers in a first term assignment, especially overseas, and especially for those that have never been overseas or traveled alone. So for me, it was an opportunity to make it the best experience possible. And let alone, I had soldiers that were from different countries. And so I
Mhm.
used that as well to kind of teach soldiers of all races, of all backgrounds, just about different, I guess you can say, traditions. So had a few of my soldiers that actually came to my apartment in Korea with my family, my girls, and exactly what you said, had a charcuterie board, did the whole meal, black eyed peas, rice, greens.
Yes.
One of my soldiers was from Ghana. So his wife was a cook. She was actually a cook. So she made me puff puff and rice and peas and hard chicken. It was amazing. So I probably had about 30 soldiers that I hosted, and then had the opportunity to teach them about Kwanzaa. And we watched the different Kwanzaa events that were happening with the Greensboro Kwanzaa Cultural Center. So that was a pretty, for me, it was memorable. I have some soldiers, I've made certain meals and gave it to them, and they to this day call me and they're like, ma'am, I tried to make this. What are you doing? I'm looking forward to your post. I'm looking forward to learning about the next Kwanzaa event. And then with the family, over time, I've had certain soldiers that I've befriended, and they've been a part of our family Kwanzaa celebration that we do on Zooms. So that's been pretty cool too, because they want to know more about it. So.
I love that. There's a couple of things in there, and we're gonna break them apart and come around to them. So just bear with us. Um, I want to hear more because Keith and Belinda, you are not only amazing individuals, you have raised amazing individuals. You've raised some folks who are truly just industry leaders across the board. You have a whole major in the army, a whole major in the army. You have a whole Broadway star, right? You have a whole legal genius. You have raised these amazing folks in these different industries. And I'm curious to know how you all approach, and in your own career paths as well, where does Kwanzaa show up in your workplace specifically? So Sabrina kind of led us off in the fact that like she's in a leadership role and she has the opportunity to introduce these principles to folks. Um, just tell me a little bit more about like professionally, where does Kwanzaa show up and how has it played a role in your chosen career path?
I,
So I guess
I,
I can speak on that too. Just to go further, for me, it's definitely like Toby mentioned, just because of what was instilled into our family, the aspect of bringing the community together. So
Hmm.
for me, every day is I guess, a hardcore approach to our principal Ujima, because I not only am I a leader in my job of human resources for the Army, but I also have taken on lead of bringing my human resources community, which is called the Adjutant General's Corps, together. So I'm the president of the AGCRA Association, where I bring all soldiers, from junior soldiers to leaders, together so that we can be the best leaders possible and attentive to our task that we have to do for the Army. Instead of just being one-minded, we come together so that we can do the task together. So that's one aspect of it. And then just being a female minority officer in the military, that has been my passion for being in the service, is the mentorship aspect. So one thing that I do a lot in different jobs that I've been in throughout my 15 years of my career, I've always brought the females together to show them, like, I'm a female minority officer. I have dealt with these issues along the way, but it doesn't define who I am. And you see that my success has gotten me here. So whatever you're going through, it doesn't define who you are. Let's just figure out how to get over the hump. So going into this new year, I'll be starting a female morale and mentorship program for the whole installation of Fort Liberty, North Carolina, which brings all female officers, enlisted, civilians, contractors together so that we can talk about exactly what our principals discuss. Whether it's being a mom in the military, the aspect of dealing with postpartum depression as a female, going to the field and not being able to cater to a family member, or being with our child, or, dealing with gender roles and everything. So, like I said, I think that I use our principles in every walk of my career when I walk into my building. So
That's fantastic. Sis, please keep me posted. Because way over here in Raleigh, however I can help and support, I'm on board.
absolutely, would love to have you come be a guest speaker. That would be
Yay!
amazing. So yes, it will definitely keep you informed of the endeavors.
Good stuff. Toby, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think
Mom, you want to go?
yeah, I was gonna piggyback on Sabrina's, because she and I are in the same professional area, which I never saw it coming, but I'm so happy. Um, so I, even though I started out my professional career as an employment lawyer, I you know moved into and grew into human resources. So I've been in human resources leadership since 2007. So it's been a minute here. And I can attest to the same thing that Sabrina said, is that many of the principles of Kwanzaa are really things that kind of give you reinforcement in challenging environments.
Right.
Sabrina mentioned a number of the challenges that, some of her soldiers or that might encounter in a military setting. Well, it's the same thing in corporate America. A lot of people understand and know that, a successful career in corporate America is not for the faint-hearted, but it's so much more about just what you do. It's about the how. And, the principles of Kwanzaa really help you elevate your notion, your mindset of the how you will go about, working with each other, how you will go about helping one another in the workplace, how you look at your, what your real goals are, and how you do it all without being self-centered, but still being, assertive and determinative about what you want to do. And so, my human resources journey has also taken me to, leadership for organizations in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, those principles come in full force in terms of really helping organizations, not only at an organizational level, understand how the decisions that they're making and or the way, the process, the systems that they use to do certain things, how they impact others, and so how we do that with empathy, and how you do it with, resilience, and how you help one another collectively, think in the more positive terms, and how you develop the growth mindset as opposed to a victim mindset, and that sort of thing. So those things are in full effect like almost every day. When you work in a field like Sabrina and I,
Yeah.
like human resources, and it's particularly been interesting for me the last 3 years because I've been, the vice president of DEI and employee relations for a gaming company, and 85% of our employees are between the ages of 20 and 40. And so really helping, impress those, principles, and some of that way of thinking on, the younger generations, has been, an interesting journey, more than a notion. But some principles, like the principles of Kwanzaa, are timeless.
Yeah.
They never get old. They never get obsolete. I mean, there's a lot of technology in the workplace that impacts how we do things that becomes obsolete. But when you start talking about things like faith, and you start talking about things like self-determination, and collectively working together, and unity, those things never grow old, and they always
They
have
have
maximum.
memory.
Toby, do you want to speak on them?
Yeah, I think just to keep it a little short, we definitely. So I work in corporate philanthropy, which is essentially trying to convince people to infuse more of these corporate dollars into our communities, and making sure that we are kind of upholding that aspect of supporting the communities that support us. And so
Hmm.
it takes a lot of faith, I will say, to be able to change people's minds and share with them why that's important from a corporate aspect, but also, of course, the principle of Ujama, and what it means to have cooperative economics, and again, utilize that treasure aspect in making sure that people are uh, able to do the work that they do, especially within the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I definitely see the Kwanzaa principle almost every day, and just trying to explain to people, maybe not utilizing the specific words, but being able to ensure that people are continuing to think about those principles when it comes to uh, the communities that we live and work in, and making sure that they're continuing to keep that in mind when they're making donations to nonprofits, when they're choosing the nonprofits that they want to support. Um,
Hmm.
that, yeah, I would say that takes up most of my time. And then I also have an organization called Hypha Collective, which is a cooperative consulting company. And so we work to be able to make sure that people are incorporating the other people within the company in their decision making processes. So we call it
Hmm.
democratizing workplaces, making sure that people are continuing to not only keep their shareholders, so the people who are supporting them economically, to run their business in mind, but also the stakeholders and the people who are actually upholding the company, making sure that the company continues to operate. Those voices are needed when it comes to making decisions on how they want to get paid, how they want to do certain things to make sure that their business continues to run. So that's something that we're really passionate about. And then my last one is, or not last one, but Community Investment Network. So I'm the board chair of the network, and it's a network of giving circles, which is also something that my parents instilled within me, and were able to begin when I was younger. And so we have about 19 different giving circles across the US that are Black and Brown led, and able to through that network, we're able to connect with other leaders who might be in different communities from ours, who are giving back, especially through their treasure, but also through their time, talent, ties. So we have a bunch of T's that are continuing to really support the communities that we're in. So I would say holistically, I'm very community based and want to make sure that people's voices are being elevated within our communities.
Mhm.
Folks who feel or maybe are under resourced are able to access those resources, and making sure that people are able to do the work that they can do so that we can live and thrive all together.
I love that. Living and
And
thriving all together.
Yes.
Toby is
Go
the
ahead, Ken.
board chair. Yeah, I was just saying she's the board chair of the Community Investment
Mhm.
Network. And I remember when Toby was in college at Spelman volunteerism for the students at
Mhm.
Spelman to go out into Atlanta, for a couple of years. She was the core person. And so my career path, I've been a college and corporate recruiter, but most of my work has been in the volunteerism in the community. So I'm a member of several organizations, fraternal organizations and community organizations, and volunteerism, through my church, has been so important to unify the community. And so I believe that also has a tie to our culture
Mhm.
of giving and keeping our community together, which again the principles of Kwanzaa just echo and amplify.
Absolutely. I love that you have found ways to not only do what you're good at, but also what you're passionate about, and also what is beneficial to the community. I think there's a sweet spot where all of those things align and are able to lock in place. And you've done an amazing job of finding that place and going forward with that work, because it a lot of volunteerism and nonprofit work is not easy. It's not easy work. And I know there are a number of struggles that come along with that that don't necessarily happen in other industries. And so, talk to us a little bit about like how the sense of community for Black folks and for folks who come from the African diaspora is a little bit different than you might find in other communities.
I would start with that principle of cooperative economics, because that
Mhm.
is where uh, we are behind in our country as a culture, as African culture. We, when you look at all the statistics of the wage and earnings and the net worth of African Americans versus the
Mhm.
net worth of white Americans, there's so much disparity out there. And so I think that principle of cooperative economics is the current and next frontier that we have to instill in our families. We
Mhm.
still have uh, families that land is being passed down to, and the next generation doesn't want to till the land or keep the land, and so they're
Mhm.
selling it uh, for less than it's worth, just to make a quick dollar. And so we,
Right.
and African Americans, with our labor, built this country, built America. And so it's, so very important that we begin to teach. Linked up with Brother Antoine Medley, who's getting ready to start a Saturday school called the Sankofa
Okay.
School, um, to really um, fight against some of the cultural things that are not being taught in the traditional public schools, so that and when you teach culture, it also helps the person with their self-esteem. Um,
Mhm.
my son Reed and I had an opportunity to travel to China for 3 weeks when he was 12 years old, and going over to China and linking in with Chinese students that were preteens and teenagers, they
Mhm.
have thousands of years of of history that they learn in grade school. In America, we learn a couple of hundred years. So an example is, a student might know who George Washington was, first president. They know the 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. Well, in China, the culture has those students knowing of czars, from
Yeah.
a couple thousand years ago. And so as we teach these Kwanzaa principles, as we continue Kwanzaa principles, as we continue to bring families together, um, I believe that this is going to unify us as a people.
Mhm.
And I'd like to interject right here. We have done college tours as a family for over 30 years now through our churches and through the communities, and we have a foundation preparing America's Tomorrow Today, where we will take students from middle school and high school away from home, primarily to historically black colleges and universities. But not only we do go to majority schools also, but one of the things we do on that college tour bus a couple of times a year is we make sure the students learn Lift Every Voice and Sing the Black National Anthem. We make sure that the students understand the importance of civil rights organizations. So we break the groups down into red, black, and green teams. They represent NAACP, National Urban League, CORE, SNCC, and so we take that opportunity to teach. And our people are so resilient and so intelligent. And Belinda and I saw that when we hit the campus of Florida A&M University years and years ago, that we are intelligent people that that can sustain, and so we have to
Yeah.
do things to keep our
Yeah.
family together.
I think Keith has mentioned a lot of the things that it begins with education, right? And it begins
Mhm.
also with self-examination and exploration, because the popular narrative in this country for persons of African descent is not positive, it's not uplifting. And so you have to go to those places where you can get that true lens of who we really are as a people, because we're going to need to fight. There have been systems in place for
Right,
years
institution.
that have really gotten in the way of our ability in a critical mass. You have individuals here and there who have been able to break through, the discriminatory systems or the blockers that have kept us
Yeah.
from being able to, have that generational wealth build, or, do some things generationally. But, when you think about it, our parents, me and Keith's generation, their legacy to us was access to education, access to jobs,
Mhm.
right? Our
Mhm.
legacy to our kids, Sabrina, Toby, Reed, is, not only giving them access, but also giving them the opportunity to not just go work for somebody for 20 and 30 years, but if you want to be an entrepreneur, stepping out that way. And now you're seeing a big shift in wealth, that's being passed down from one generation to the other. And so our job also is to be able to preserve, grow, and pass down the wealth that's been passed to us from our parents, in the form of, sometimes it's just land,
Yeah.
Our
sometimes
house.
it's sometimes it's that, grandparent who were buying shares of JC Penney's when it first started, and held on to them because that was the thing to do. But the fact of the matter is, there is a lot of wealth that's trapped in our community that we need to definitely figure out and educate each other on how to make sure that we pass that down so it can empower, our generations to come to further build upon that. I mean, I think that that's something that we really, really need to take seriously.
Mhm. I think you're absolutely right. And I think also, just to kind of connect the 2 points, yes, there's the financial aspect of economics and being able to pass something down or having something that's been passed down, but also that emotional legacy, knowing who your people were and what they did and why they were important, and the individual struggles that they overcame, I think does so much to inform who we are. You are not necessarily tied to your ancestors in the sense of a limitation, but when you think of the stories that they held within their lifetimes,
Yeah.
um,
Right.
being able to pull that down. I think about, this is a dual case. My great grandfather worked for the railroad. He was Pullman Porter for the railroad, and he had an incredible pension. It took care of his
Yeah.
wife long after he was gone. It took care of his children, my grandparents, long after. Like, there was some longevity there, but I'm coming now to understand the story of the men who worked on that railroad and some of the things that he encountered, and some of the things that, uh, some of the ways that he had to triumph personally in that profession. And
Yeah.
both of those things sort of meet in the middle, and that gives me something to be proud of. I stick my chest out a little bit because I know that story, and I'm grateful that you are a family that's exemplifying a way to pass these things down generationally.
And then
So much fun. I'm having a great
we went to the Pullman Porter Museum. If you get an opportunity, or if the viewers get an opportunity, go to that in Chicago, and it's an amazing story. The way the Pullman Porters had measly or had very low wages, but they were able to
time.
pull their money together, and through contacts, able to get their children off to higher institution, higher education institutions. Um, and I don't want this segment to end also without talking about that summer of social justice when
Hmm.
George Floyd was murdered. And so, since our son, Belinda and Toby's brother, is not on the line, I know that he would want us to talk a little bit about some of the work that
You mean Sabrina and Toby's brother?
Sabrina and Toby.
Okay,
What did I
because
say? Reed and Toby.
So
you
yeah,
said Belinda and Toby's,
Oh,
but
I'm
I
sorry.
want to make sure
Belinda's the mama.
I'm his
She's the
mother,
executive producer
producer. Yeah,
of Reed Shannon.
that was no small feat. So, I want to get
right,
credit
that
for
part,
that.
Correcting me.
Yeah.
that part.
So Reed is the youngest of the three children, but he was deep into
Yeah.
social justice, as much of the country was. But when George Floyd was killed, Reed was out setting up protests in the middle of the pandemic in Los Angeles. He was having conversations with Mayor Garcetti, at under 21 years old. And at first I was saying, well, no, don't do that. But then after I saw this groundswell of people following him, and taking on the leadership, and seeing how tied in he was to the culture, um,
Hmm.
I had to get behind it. We had to support it. I don't think Belinda had any reservation about it, but it led Reed to uh, get selected by Facebook
Hmm.
to be in their For the Culture program. And so for a couple of years, he led, as a young person under 25 years old now, he led, a lot of people to talk about social justice, so much so that he has started his own foundation called Change Requires Choice. And it helped inform us this first year that we did a social justice tour. And so, these dialogues concerning Kwanzaa,
Hmm.
Hmm.
are part of what helps bring the community together. In fact, on my Facebook page, as I've been, just putting up the principles each day, I've had a lot of Caucasian friends that have not, known about the real inside of what Kwanzaa is all about. And they've been, sending me messages saying they've been enlightened. So it
Hmm.
goes beyond our family, beyond our community.
Yeah.
You're
But if you
absolutely right.
talk, if you build it into the culture, yeah, yeah, if you build it into the culture of your family, it does become a part of each, of who you are, who you become, and what you do. Because even before Reed led the protest in 2020. I mean, we have a picture of him at his graduation from high school where he's throwing up the Black Power symbol as soon as he received his diploma. Right? And he said, I had to let them know who I was, so.
Trust me, we know. We know, Reed. We know who you are. We know you. We know you.
But Shonda, I think that does speak just what you were saying. We know who you are. Like, I think there is something to be said about being raised in the type of environment that my mom and dad created for us, because I think that people say that about all of us as kids. We know who Sabrina is. We know who Reed is. We know who Tobi is. Like, people understand what we're about. And I think that that's also an important aspect of being able to instill principles 365 days and not just the 7 days, and making sure that people understand, like, stand up in who you are and be able to, speak proudly about where you come from and how you can continue to infuse that within the places that you go.
Yeah, you've saved a lot of time. That aspect of Kuji Chagalia, that aspect of self-determination, who I am, and making decisions for myself and making choices for my own sake and for my own future. Y'all got that out of the way real early on, and you were able to dive in, and there was a lot less, let's say, wandering through the world and wandering through these spaces and trying to figure out who I am, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there comes a point where even when you know who you are, that changes. It flips, and it's time for a reassessment. It's time for you to check back in with yourself and with a new world and with new situations. But what a gift to be able to start off with that kind of confidence, and with that, and knowing that you've got the support behind you. Um, the Shannons, like, y'all are super parents for real. Because when Reed had an opportunity, y'all were like, all right, well, it's a family thing now. We're going. It's happening.
But
Talk a little bit
he was
about.
the Chanda. He was number
Mhm.
3. We had already practiced that with the girls. Sabrina told us when she was 14 that she wanted to be a military officer. So we're like, okay, what do we need to do? Because at that point, Reed was 1 year old, and then Tobi, she's our citizen of the world. Sabrina wants to protect the world. She's in the military. She wants to save the world. So she's our citizen of the world, working in sustainability. And Reed, he told us from day one that he wanted to entertain the world. So, it was just like we had the blessings that they were of sound mind, and so we could point them in that direction, and immerse them in whatever they needed to do that they said and expressed was their thing. So Reed he was like the last one, but we started with Sabrina.
Oh my Lord. Well, you have to remember, Reed was the one I was around for.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I came to the game late, as
Right.
and I was so happy. I met Reed, and I was like, Reed is wonderful. He's amazing with it. And Belinda told me fast. He was like, you haven't met my daughters. You haven't met the girls. I was like, oh snap. I'm in for it. And everything she said was true. Absolutely 100% true.
And what's
Let's
crazy? Let me share one more thing about that.
absolutely.
What's crazy is if you talk to Reed, even today, one of the things that has driven him in his career is he used to say to me on the regular, he's like, I gotta beat Sabrina and Tobi at something. I have to do more than them. I have to beat them. I have to figure that out.
Healthy competition.
That is baby boy mentality right there. I'm telling you, because I'm the oldest child. So, like, I learned how to, like, come here and play by the rules and be excellent and do the things and the boop boop boop, right? And my baby sister is the flower child, and it's like, okay, whatever, and she, like, stumbles into greatness, and I'm like, but I had to work. Like, everybody's all cooing and impressed with you, but I earned mine. Like, can I? No, all right, fine. So, Sabrina, I get it, and yeah, much respect, sis.
Those are
I'm a,
those times, Toby. I used to be like, it's okay. You're gonna get out soon.
Just a little bit more pressure. It's fine.
And then that's when she goes, I'm going to boarding school. I can't wait till college. Like you.
that is so funny. She was practicing her kaumba, her creativity. How do I get around
Yep.
being in this shadow? I know, I know what I'll do. But seriously, not to downplay the fact of the matter that you as parents, Keith and Belinda, saw it, you believed it, you invested in it for each one of your children. Because I know the mentality of parents in previous generations was, your kids come to you with a dream, but your first intuition as a parent in that generation might have been to steer them to something that was more sure, something that was going to be solid and reliable, and you wanted them to have that safety net. So I'm grateful that you all, yielded to the spirit, so to speak, and that really followed their lead because you knew that you could trust what you had poured into them. That's not to be understated.
And I'm so glad that you have spoken of the Spirit because, our source of everything is God Almighty, the creator of
Hmm.
heaven and earth. And,
Hmm.
I believe that God sustains us. We are Christians. Uh, Baptist tradition, but Kwanzaa matches Kwanzaa, and I just want to give a shout out as I know that our time is winding down to you, Shonda, the modern day mommy, for again bringing our community together for 7 days at the end of every year, and I pray your strength and your encouragement and your um, revival as you serve the students in the school system as you also perform your uh, full-time part-time job as an artist, and
Hmm.
we just thank you for having us in this space to be able to chat for a little bit about to me about making our community better, making our family stronger, and helping push the envelope that good should be done in this community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I received that blessing. I will take it. I will absolutely take it. So before we wind up, I do want to go through the list. One of our previous guests mentioned that she was, grateful that she got to share about what she was doing and where people could find her. And I was like, that's the whole point of this. So I'm gonna pop these resources up on the screen, and whichever Shannon is in charge of that particular resource, just sound off, tell us what we need to know about it, how we can follow up and get a hold of these items. Yeah. All right. So let's start with this one: race relation tours.
So race relations tours is a was born out of race relations study circles in the Triangle, and so we believed that we had to do more than just have dialogue about social justice. So we've worked with Baptist Grove Church and friends at St. Francis of Assisi in Raleigh, and had a wonderful first year of the social justice bus tour. So we're doing two this coming spring. Uh, those will be announced at the Race Relations Tour site on January 8th. And so we look forward to, putting citizens on a bus and having, uncommon dialogue about how we can bring races together in America. So that's our social justice. It's our modern day freedom ride, is what it is.
I love that. That is so intriguing to me. The just for you to have the foresight to like grab a bunch of folks, let's put them on a bus. we're gonna ride, we're gonna talk, we're gonna have this discussion while we explore some Black history. We've touched around this a lot this evening, but allyship is something that I believe in strongly, and I think that Kwanzaa and its principles and the practice of it lends itself to building stronger relationships with allies. We want y'all to come to the party. You can't center yourselves here, but we want y'all to come and learn and be a part. And I think that that is the way that we move forward when people can sit down together and break bread and chat in these really close quarters, in these personal ways about things that matter. I think that's where we gain traction, and that's where we move forward as a beloved community where everybody is involved. And that benefits the Black community where we have to do some intricate work here on our own. So
Definitely.
that's race relation course, and people are going to go to that website and look up that information. Let's talk a little bit about Pat USA.
You want to
So
speak on
that's
the history
Preparing
of
America's Tomorrow Today, and that's the
Mhm.
organization Keith and I started many years ago to support the college tour, the college tours that we were doing several times a year, just to expose young people, particularly in our Black community, to the possibilities of college. I think in the early '90s when we started doing it, we realized that they weren't always our students weren't always getting all the information about some of the most wonderful choices that are out there, particularly our historically Black colleges and universities. And so we started putting these tours together, under the notion that these students they can't be what they can't see. And so from eighth grade to 12th grade, we would take them on these college campuses where they would see students that look just like themselves, seeing them thrive at a higher level in life, getting higher education. And so that's what we do. Sometimes it's a week long tour, sometimes it's just a day long tour. And we have operated tours out of Raleigh, Atlanta, Detroit, Michigan,
New
New
Jersey,
Jersey,
yeah,
California. So
Minnesota.
wherever we are, parents or organizations find us or we find them to expose that next set of students to the possibilities for higher education.
And
I
I'd
am
like to say
looking
here,
at the site. Go ahead.
also that we have a lot of careers that parents have, in all communities, not only the Black community, where, as an example, a parent might be a dentist, and the
Hmm.
student or the um, children don't want to be in the dental field, or a parent might be
Hmm.
in real estate. My dad was in real estate after he left a career in the Army. None of the three of us siblings wanted to be in real estate. So we sort of lost some things. Well, I'm happy to say that some of the things that we have, been able to create and expand upon with Sabrina, Toby, and Reed, they have taken part in the development of these things. So Sabrina, at each military base that she's at, has put students on the college tour. She's
Wow.
received the college tour buses when we come, near her base or wherever she is. Toby, talked to the college tours a couple of times while she was in college at Spelman. Received the buses, and so the legacy continues. And Reed has been on several of the tours. In fact, as of late, a couple of years ago, he was on a tour and did all the videoing. He
Hmm.
volunteered his time and used his craft to support the tour. So yeah, so these college tours are important, and we look forward to continue to do those. But Belinda has tried to retire from them a couple of times, but
Yeah, I might help him set it up, but I'm retired. I'm not going to get on that bus.
That is a trip. it's crazy because college tours are one of the formative things that I remember um, from my high school career, from my youth. I remember that, the AKAs had a youth group, Precious Pearls, and the Alphas had their institute, and they would work together and they would get the charter bus and they would coordinate all the hotels and all the places to stop and eat and all of the museums to attend along the way and coordinate with all of the folks on campus. And it was truly a special moment, like, like Toby and like Sabrina, be having gone on those tours but then being able to receive kids. I remember they brought kids to Tennessee State one year when I was there, and to like step out of my dorm room and see the bus, roll up, and I had me and a
Yeah.
couple of my girlfriends, and I brought them all up to my room. I had a suite at the time, in Hale Hall. Shout out to TSU.
All right,
At the
TSU.
top of the hill, in Hale Hall.
Right.
And I remember I had 15 girls sitting on my dorm room floor, and me and three of my girlfriends were sitting on the bed, and we kicked the grown folks out and had girl talk. Like, we sent the grown folks to the bookstore for an hour. And, some of those young ladies have reached out to me since, and it's fantastic just to know that those are the kinds of things that are not simple. It's not easy to coordinate all of that. It's not, there's a lot of legwork and a lot of mental work that goes into setting all of that up and getting it coordinated. But it's one of those things that is a given. Like, we know that this is a thing that works. So we have to do the work. We have to make the investment in order to make sure that those continue to be an option for our kids. Let's go to the next one.
Right.
Who's up? Drum roll.
Yep, I can talk
We already spoke of that one.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but this is the cooperative consulting organization that I co-founded with a couple of my friends from graduate school, and we work with small, medium, and large organizations to make sure that we can continue to infuse the voices of shareholders as well as stakeholders within the organization decision making. So definitely check out the site if that's something that your organization or other organizations that you might know may need. We do facilitation work. We work with getting organizations to B Corp status and getting that certification. We work with, again, that research and strategy piece of just making sure that practices within the workplace are equitable.
That's so critical. It's one of those things. Somebody said to me, "Oh, this EDI fad, in a few years it'll be," and I was like, "No, no, 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 no,
It's not
no,
going away.
no." Number one, it's not going away. Number two, it shouldn't,
Right.
because we spoke earlier about that too. There are so many things systemically that have stood in our way. Something that my husband says quite often is, black people excel at sports, but it's not because we're bigger, stronger, faster, and can handle a ball. It's because in sports there are very clearly defined rules. There's very little gray area for there to be like a and a and there's so few opportunities for some back ending and that kind of thing. So when you put a ball in somebody's hand and there's a time limit and everybody has to play by the same rules, you see us excel for those reasons. And the same applies in other fields. The same applies across the board. And I think that there's a misunderstanding when it comes to DEI work that that folks expect that things are being taken from one group and given to another group. That's not what this is. It's about leveling the playing field. It's about making things equitable for everyone, so that the most talented folks and the most dedicated folks and the folks who are really practicing their craft well have the opportunities that they are entitled to, that they deserve.
Yeah,
I'm
amen
so
to that, Shonda. That's a whole nother episode,
That's episode 2.
Right.
Yeah,
Part two.
yeah. So let's put a pin in that. Oh,
We'll
did we?
circle back around. We'll circle
Okay.
back around. Um, yeah, because that's so
Yep.
important.
And then this is the Community Investment Network. Again, my mom and dad, with their founding circle, the next generation of African American philanthropists out of the Triangle in North Carolina, um, collaborated with the Birmingham Change Fund out of Birmingham, Alabama, to begin the Community Investment Network, excuse me, which is a network of giving circles led by Black and Brown folks, Black and Brown leaders in different communities. And so I'm the board chair of the organization right now. And we just come together to be able to continue infusing our time, talent, and treasure into the communities that we love, that uphold us, and do a lot of collective giving to different nonprofit organizations as well as for-profit organizations. So supporting entrepreneurs of color, especially, and being able to
Mhm.
continue that legacy of upholding Ujama, especially, to make sure that our communities are being sustained, even when other folks don't see the value in that, or see how we can continue to do that for ourselves.
I'm so blown away by this, but I also know and recognize that like giving circles is again not a new thing to the Black community.
Absolutely.
It's something that
Right.
we have a long tradition of, and I always think about the Black church. I think that it is such a great microcosm to explain and to demonstrate some of the ways in which we operate. I talked in one episode about, Big Mama didn't need permission from the deacons and the elders. She just baked them sweet potato pies and sold them. And, that was the money that she put in for, brother. The other example I use all the time is Brother Martin coming to town. We got to take care of Brother Martin when he gets here. And so they just did things that were within their realm and within their scope. And the knitting circle would sell their quilts, and they would send some young scholar in the church to school. They would cover books, or make sure they had a nice black suit to wear. We have been doing these kinds of things as long as we have been around, and yet we put these corporate faces on them, and people kind of get squeamish about it, um, and they don't understand it, or they don't see it for the benefit that it produces. So I'm really, really proud of that organization. I'm interested in, again, getting involved more deeply in that too.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts about like the origins of giving circles and the long history that we have in the Black community around those?
Yeah, just that, like you said, it's something that we've always done as a diaspora. So you think about Susu and those
Mhm.
traditions around just collective giving and collectivism in action. And on the site you'll see it's Give by Design. So all of our giving circles are unique because it is giving in the way that we want to come together, having those unique experiences within our different communities. And so you'll see these giving circles that might operate a little bit differently. We all just gathered in New Orleans to be able to, with some of the other leaders of the other giving circles in the network, to just talk about and share ideas about what that looks like, how we can evolve as giving circles. And then another side of it is sharing with folks who might be outside of our communities that this is something that happens, that we can be philanthropists, that we're not always the folks who are receiving, but we're also the folks that are giving, and that we're able, again, to sustain ourselves really, and continue to have the confidence to be able to do so and share that legacy with future generations. So I'm excited for the organization and the things to come in 2024 around it.
It's also very important that we
I'm I'm
consider having our young people look into philanthropy as a career, because again, we're talking about the
mhm.
institutions, particularly in
Yeah.
America, where the money is hidden. And if we don't have people going into those fields, that have an economic, engine, then we'll
Hmm.
continue to be left behind.
Again, it's exposure. Philanthropy was not a thing that even crossed my mind as a career growing up. That simply was not an option that I even knew to explore.
Yeah.
Something that somebody said on another previous episode. Can you imagine if we had people like us in our lives at 16 and 17 years old? And I
Mm.
think that again speaks to the generational. Within your family, you've already done it, and you are active in taking that into your community. And I think that we need more folks to take some of the things that they've learned from previous generations into communities where there may not be that longevity, where there may not be that generational knowledge, that generational wealth, to step in and mentor and to assist some of these kids who are brilliant as they come. They are amazing kids, and they simply do not have the same resources. So that's a plea that I am putting into the universe. I know that the Shannon family is already doing that. And I know several other individuals who are already doing that, but we need more. We need them to stretch out across this country and to lock arms and really focus on how we can uplift all of the next generation and not just cherry pick certain kids.
I agree.
I'm so I'm delighted. We're at time. We're at time. It always sneaks up on us. But and it's something that I've heard repeated over and over again throughout our conversation. So I almost really don't feel the need to ask it. But just for consistency, I'll give everybody one more run at this. What does Kwanzaa look like in your everyday life? And it can be just a quick snapshot, because again, I've heard it repeatedly over and over again from you all. So I will toss that one out there as we begin to close.
I'll speak up first. I look at the Marara, Marana Karinga started Kwanzaa. He was intent on us giving ode and homage to our elders. And so that is a basic principle that, it's not one of the seven principles, it's not one of the seven words, it's not one of the 7 days,
Mhm,
but learning from our elders is
mhm.
so
But it
very
is one of the
important.
pillars.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
so very important, in our community. And I believe that we need to spend more time with our elders, find out what sustained them through the trials and
Hmm.
tribulations. Uh, and that's how we will learn and be able to pass things down to the next generation.
And you know we the elders now, right?
Not me.
Mm.
He said that fast. Nope. Mm-mm.
Had to remind him. I would just say strength real quick. All of the pillars of Kwanzaa, either all together or one or more of its parts provides daily strength.
I love that.
For me, I think it comes down to just knowing who I am and really having the space to explore and understand where I come from. And that's what helps me get through um, the daily principles going throughout the life, but most importantly, teaching my girls and my next generation of what's important and what they need to do in order to be able to sustain themselves, to go forth as the next, as you said, pillar to the society of what they're going to
Mhm.
be and give back to the world. So
Yeah, and similarly, I was going to say confidence and just being able to have the confidence of knowing who I am, so Kuji Chagalia, also understanding that there is a community that's behind me and supports me. And as much as they do that, I need to continue to give back in gratitude and reverence. And just understanding how to hold that.
Those are all beautiful responses. And that I think is where we will leave it. Y'all, I'm about to cry. Ah! Um, my heart is so full. I'm so overwhelmed with joy and with hope and with all things light and bright. Because I'm thinking not just of the time that I've shared with you all, but the time that I've spent with all of the guests over the course of these 7 days. And it really just brings me to a place of gratitude. Um, and I'm excited. So I promised y'all a finale, a spectacular finale, and here it is. We have the Shannon family. Keith and Belinda, thank you. Sabrina Gamage, thank you. Toby Shannon, thank you. Reed Shannon, in your absence, we'll let it slide this time, but next year you owe us an appearance. Um, I
Right.
thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Shonda, so
Thank you for
much.
having
Yes,
us.
thank you.
This has been great.
Hariza Kwanzaa, everyone. May your Kwanzaa be blessed.
Shay.
Yours
Bye-bye.
so
Ashe.
with
Good
you.
night.
Bye bye.
Good night.